What frameworks help align vision, strategy, and outcomes across a school district? Well, several years ago, I had the opportunity to attend a leadership retreat for women in education. It was an awesome event. I'll never forget the moment a superintendent confessed to me during the retreat, "Kim, we have a beautiful strategic plan sitting in a binder on my shelf. But if I ask 10 principals what our district's top priority is, I'd get 10 different answers." So, have you ever felt that disconnect between what your district envisions and what actually happens in classrooms every day? Well, I have. As a principal, one of my priorities was to ensure that we aligned with the district's vision. You see, this gap isn't uncommon. In fact, it's one of the most persistent challenges facing K-12 educational leaders today. The problem isn't that we lack vision. Most districts have compelling mission statements and strategic plans that align with the district vision. The real issue is that we haven't developed the systems necessary to translate our vision into consistent, measurable action across all levels of our organization. So let's talk about the mistakes that we make. You see, the first mistake I see is district leaders who treat strategic planning as an event rather than a continuous process. We gather stakeholders, conduct SWOT analysis, create 5-year plans, and then move on to address the challenges of the day. The plan becomes static, disconnected from the daily decisions happening in schools. As Peter Senge reminds us in the 5th discipline, the organizations that will truly excel in the future will be the organizations that discover how to tap people's commitment and capacity to learn at all levels. The second error is misunderstanding the concept of alignment itself. Too many districts confuse compliance with alignment. You see, we mandate initiatives expecting implementation to follow automatically. However, authentic alignment isn't about forcing conformity. It's about fostering a shared understanding and coherent action toward common goals. Third, we separate vision, strategy, and outcomes into different silos. You see, vision belongs in the boardroom, strategy in the central office, and outcomes for principals and teachers. Have you ever heard that? Well, this fragmentation guarantees misalignment before we even begin. So how can we do better? Well, before we talk about that, I want to help you understand that before exploring frameworks, which is what we traditionally jump into, we must shift our thinking. System thinking requires us to see our districts as interconnected, dynamic organisms rather than hierarchical machines. This means embracing several key mindsets. The first one is coherence over compliance. Michael Fullen emphasizes that coherence, the shared depth of understanding about the purpose and nature of the work, is what drives sustainable improvement. So ask yourself, do your team members understand why the vision matters, or are they just going through the motions? Next is long-term thinking and learning over short-term fixes. You see, continuous improvement isn't about quick wins. It's about building capacity for ongoing adaptation and growth. That's why our thinking and approaches have to be in alignment. Followed by collective efficacy over individual excellence. John Hattie's research shows that collective teacher efficacy has one of the highest effect sizes on student achievement. Alignment must harness the collaborative power of your entire system, which is why PLCs have such a significant impact. So now that we've looked at shifting our mind, let's discuss frameworks that work. Because there are several proven frameworks that can help you bridge the gap between vision and outcomes. The first framework is the Balanced Scorecard for Education. Now, initially developed by Kaplan and Norton for business, this framework translates vision into 4 perspectives: student learning and growth, internal processes, stakeholder satisfaction, and financial stewardship. Each perspective includes strategic objectives, measures, targets, and initiatives. The power lies in its ability to illustrate how various elements of your system interact to produce results. The next framework is theory of action, or logic model. This framework, which is one of my favorites and one I used as a district supervisor, makes explicit the assumptions that link your strategies to the desired outcomes. It answers, if we do X, then Y will happen because of Z. So by mapping these causal relationships, you create transparency and testability. When outcomes fail to materialize, you can examine whether the strategy was flawed or the underlying theory was incorrect. The next strategy is the 4 disciplines of execution, also known as 4DX. This strategy or framework was created by McChesney, Covey, and Hulling, and it offers a practical approach. So focus on the wildly important, identifying 1 to 3 critical goals. Act on lead measures, so track activities that predict success. Keep a compelling scorecard, make progress visible, and create accountability. So establish a regular rhythm of reviewing commitments. This framework prevents the whirlwind of daily urgency from drowning strategic priorities. Plan, Do, Study, Act, or PDSA cycles is the next framework. Now, this work is rooted in the science of continuous improvement. So PDSA cycles provide a disciplined approach to testing challenges, learning from results, and adapting. When embedded district-wide, this method transforms strategic planning from a static to a dynamic process. The most effective approach combines elements from multiple frameworks, customized to your context. What matters most is selecting a framework and implementing it with fidelity and consistency. So, my challenge to you this week? Well, I challenge you to conduct an alignment audit. Gather your leadership team and ask 3 questions. Can every leader articulate our district's top 3 strategic priorities without looking them up? Can they explain how their specific goals connect to those priorities? Do we have systems in place for regularly monitoring progress and adjusting our strategy? If the answer to any of these is no, it's time to choose a framework and commit to the discipline of alignment. Your vision deserves more than a binder on a shelf. It deserves to live in every classroom, in every decision, and every student outcome. So let me ask you, what will you do differently tomorrow to strengthen the connection between your district's vision and your daily leadership actions?